Días de Vino y Radio, un programa presentado por Gabriel Ruiz Lopez para todos los amantes del vino, agricultores, enólogos, sumilleres, bodegueros, comerciantes, restauradores, periodistas, conectando directamente desde Barcelona, España.
Thank you, Patricia. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the point of the planet you are. Today, we're still in Central Europe, and we are going to visit a country which is not usual to talk about the wines, and is unexpected sometimes, which is Ukraine. And,
yes.
And we will visit the country together with Jenia Nikolaichuk. She's a very multifaceted young woman, but experienced, and well, she has a lot of projects. So let's speak with her. She will explain us. Hi, Jenia, how are you?
Hello, I'm really okay. I'm glad to be here today.
Okay, so well, I made a first introduction about what we are going to listen today. And I would like you to, at first, explain about yourself, how you joined the wine world, and what your trajectory and what you are doing now.
Actually, I'm working with wines starting from 2005. Actually, it's 15 years right now. I started to work in the company which made imports and distributions throughout Ukraine. I've used to work with big brands. We used to work with big champagne names, with Rothschild wines. We used to work with Taurus wines. Actually, I was the brand ambassador of Taurus wines here in Ukraine.
Oh.
We make a lot of wine projects, and as it was the middle of 2000s, actually it was 2005, 2006, 7, 8, everything just starts in Ukraine in terms of wine culture. Actually, we are rather vodka and beer drinkers than wine drinkers. And only for the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years, Ukrainians starts to drink wine more and more. So I used to work with imports, and in 2013, I finished with them. I've visited London to receive my WSET level 3 in 2011. Then 2 years after, I started to educate for my level 4 WSET and finished it in 2017. Actually, I was the first Ukrainian to receive this qualification in Ukraine, and we still have only 5 people with level 4 here on our market.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't easy because first of all because of receiving visa. It was not so difficult to study there, but it was difficult to receive visas to Britain. And in 2016, I've started my maybe my main project, I think so. It's the project of wine bars. The name is Like a Local Wine Bar. And we still are the only one wine bars, I mean, in the format of wine bars, because we have restaurants in which promotes Ukrainian wines. But in the format of wine bars, we are the only one. And in our wine list, we have only local producers, only Ukrainian wines. So it was quite challenging because in 2016, the market looks totally different than it looks right now. But I think we'll speak about it later. So now I'm working with the wine bars. It's my main project. And then I have another one project, the project of board wine game. So it's educational project. The idea that every person can study wine in the plain format. So it's not mandatory only to go to the very classical tastings or to read a lot of books or to listen podcasts, but you also can play game and study wine. So it's my another one big project. The name is Wine Inspiration because wine and inspiration, so it's just connected. And for right now, it gives me a lot of bonuses as well.
Yeah, I have given a look to it in internet, and it looks very interesting. Do you forecast to do it in other languages too, in English, for example?
Actually, for right now, I have three languages. I have it Russian, Ukrainian, and I've just translated to English. And I hope I can, maybe in the next month, I want to start to sell it on Amazon. So let's see. I have that plan, but let's see. Let's do like this.
Wow. And let's speak a little bit, continue with this before getting into the Ukrainian wines themselves. But I'm curious because you have these two bars, and I feel curiosity about what has been the evolution of the interest among the people for the wine in Ukraine.
So actually, first of all, you should understand that here in Ukraine, we don't have that big culture of wine bars. So we have a lot of restaurants, a lot of really good restaurants, a lot of cafes with coffee and so on. But wine bars, let's say, it's something more or less new for Ukraine. When I say more or less new, it's like the first ever wine bar in Kiev was opened, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago in 2011. And for Ukraine, it's that format when you come before, I don't know, before lunch or before the big evening and make a sip of wine, and then you go somewhere to the restaurant. It's something more or less new. And in Ukraine, it's almost impossible to sell wines in the bar, only wines. So here in Ukraine, in any way, people want to eat. So they want to sit, to have, I don't know, the big dish, and then to eat. So it's just something unusual for them, only to have one glass of wine and then go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So in 2016, when we opened the bar, the first ever bar, the culture was totally different, first of all, and then we decided to promote only local, only Ukrainian wines. And it was the huge challenge because let's say that 2-3 years ago, here in Ukraine, we had only more or less 50 official licensed producers of wines. So actually, we don't have that big difference of Ukrainian wines. You can choose. And let's say the quality of that Ukrainian wines is not always really good. And only 2-3 years ago, the situation started to change because the legislation changed a little bit. In our legislation, they involved the term small wineries. Mm-hmm. And the terms of licensing of that small wineries also changed. And only for the last 1 year, maybe 1.5, mm-hmm. More than 20 new wineries on the market. I understand when I'm talking about 50, 20, 15 for Spain, let's say, or for Italy, yeah. It sounds like, what? Only 50. But yes, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of official wine producers. And we have a lot of so-called unofficial production here in Ukraine. What does it mean, unofficial? It means like somewhere at home, one family, they produce one cask of wine, but due to our laws, they're not allowed to sell it. So even I like that wine, even I want to sell it, if they don't have the license for the production, I'm not allowed to sell it. So in 2016, when we started, we had only really small amount of wines we could find with a good quality. Mm-hmm. And the quality really changed every year. So not even every year, but with every bottling. So here in Ukraine, you should look every time on the label and look at the date of bottling, because the same wine with the same vintage, with the same producer, but the different date of bottling, the quality could be really, really strange. And
of course, there's an evolution of the wine in the bottle.
It's not only about evolution. It's also about the conditions of storage and so on and so on, because of technologies and really different things. So the biggest challenge in 2016, 2017 was to find the good quality Ukrainian wines. Another big challenge is that Ukrainian consumers, they not really want to promote our local wines. So here in Ukraine, it has a lot of, so it's really cool to say that I'm drinking Italian wine, or I'm drinking French wine, or I'm drinking, I don't know, German wines. But it's not really cool to say I'm drinking Ukrainian wines. So another big challenge was to say that, hey guys, we have really interesting things here. We have really interesting local grape varieties. We have a lot of new wineries you wouldn't find anywhere. So right now we have a lot of wines in our wine list. So if we started in 2016 with 5 or 7 wineries maybe in our wine list, now we promote more or less 15, 16, and I hope we will find more. In 2016, 2017, usually with the normal quality, you could find a lot of Cabernet, Merlot, Sauvignon, international grape varieties. Right now, we have more and more interesting local grape varieties like Odessa Black. I think we will speak about it later. Another ᴅɪᴏ. A lot of wine producers start to work with so-called hybrids like Solaris and so on. It's something new, let's say, interesting. And Ukrainian consumers, they starting to believe in our local wines. So we see a lot of interest, even from people who said 4 years ago that what is it? Why should I drink this? So now they start to be interested. They start to looking for something new and so on.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. How is the evolution? And well, as you are brand ambassador of Ukrainian wines, nobody better than you to make this first approach to the reality of the wine growing in Ukraine. So there's no long story. There are no wineries with a long story there.
Actually, we have wineries with long story, but you should understand that today's Ukraine, I mean today's geographical borders, it's, let's say, something new. We are only 30 years old, independent country. So in years old, 100 years old, some regions which are today's Ukrainian regions, it was part of some other countries. So let's say for Ukrainian culture, wine, it's something more or less new. I wouldn't say it's new, but it's more or less new. But some regions of Ukraine, like let's say Transcarpathia regions, which was part of Austrian-Hungarian Empire, the southern regions like Odessa region, Bessarabia, and so on, they have really long story. So some wineries here in Ukraine have more than 1 century of history. But usually the biggest ones are the biggest quantity are really new ones. So traditionally we have few wine regions. We have the main wine regions on the south of Ukraine. The main region is Odessa. Then we have Nikolaev and Kherson. And we have another one big region, it's Transcarpathia region. So let's say, so it's just on the west of the country.
They are totally different regions, no? One is close to the Black Sea and another one is more in the mountains, in the
Yes. Yes. It's totally different climate, it's totally different culture, and it's totally different style of wines they can receive over there.
Yeah, the terroir also must be very different too, no?
Yes, totally different terroir. Then we have historical region Crimea. Unfortunately, for right now, we don't have any connections with Crimea. But let's say, if we're talking about potential of terroir, I would say that Crimea maybe is the most interesting one. Unfortunately, right now, any connections with them. And then due to climate changes, we have a lot of bonuses because more north regions now receive an opportunity to grow vineyards. Even if 20, 30 years ago, it was just something unbelievable. Right now, you can find a lot of vineyards in Kiev region. It's almost north, so it's a little bit, and it would be the border with Belarus. We have vineyards in Chernihiv region. It's also the north one. We have wineries and vineyards in Lviv and Kamenets-Podolsky. So it's also quite north one. So let's say due to climatic change, Ukraine receives a lot of bonuses, and the vineyards just spread all over country.
And can you describe a little bit the landscapes between one region and the other, how they look like, height and climate a little bit?
Yeah, so if we're talking about Transcarpathia region, it's just my personal view that Transcarpathia has the biggest potential after Crimea here in Ukraine. It has a lot of different microclimates because of the slopes. So the main vineyards are growing on the border with Hungary and just before Carpathian Mountains. So a lot of slopes in general, so it's more or less 300, 400 altitude. Almost no, how to say it when it's just
flat.
So almost no flat, no flat land, and the climate. So usually, if, for example, let's say here in Kiev, in the capital of Ukraine, on winter we can have -10 degrees of Celsius, maybe -15. In Transcarpathia region, it's could be, I don't know, 0, -3, -4. So it's quite mild climate. And the same summer. So if here in Kiev, let's say on summer, we can have 35 degrees, 37, sometimes 40. So like in Transcarpathia, usually it's maximum 27, 30 degrees. So it's quite mild. And usually we say that in Transcarpathia region, it's an ideal climatic conditions for white wines and for rosé. So 10 years ago, usually it was, they didn't have an opportunity to receive good sugar level in the red varieties. So it was impossible to have ripen, let's say, Cabernet Sauvignon. Now the situation changed, of course. Now they can receive good ripeness even in Cabernet Sauvignon, of course, Pinot Noir, Merlot, and so on. Then on the south of Ukraine, in Odessa region, we have a lot of flat land. Usually it's really huge vineyards. For example, some wineries, they owned 1,000 hectares of the land. So usually it's big wineries. It's really a lot of flat land. The proximity of the Black Sea, of course, has some effect. And usually it's really good to grow red varieties over there because of the sea, because of the south situation.
Orientation.
Yes. And usually they grow a lot of red varieties as well as white, of course. But I think that the quality of the reds are better. It's also my own meaning.
Okay.
Yes, it's really early to say something about more northern regions because usually it's really young vineyards. So usually it's I don't know, 3 years old, 4 years old vineyards. So we don't have enough. We don't have enough information to say that about the style and the quality of the wines we can receive over there. So usually it's a lot.
In this time, with so young vineyards, difficult to get a good. The wine is also a question of time and patience. Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately, here in Ukraine, it's almost impossible to find any really old vineyards. So the oldest one you can find, it's like 1974 or 1976, because of USSR time, of course, because in 1986 we have the big program of uprooting vineyards. It was like anti-alcohol campaign of the middle of 80s. It's really famous one, and a lot of people who grow vineyards, they don't want to remember that times, because it was just the uprooting of vineyards, and we lost a lot of land in that time, and we lost great variety.
Time, no?
Sorry?
It was at Gorbachev time, no?
Yes. It was Gorbachev's anti-alcohol campaign of 1986, and we lost a lot of grape varieties in that times. So that's why we have a lot of international grape varieties right now, and we don't have a lot of our local grapes.
This is what I wanted to talk about now, because you mentioned before that this mixture of international varieties, but trying to recuperate the old local varieties, no?
Yes, because I think that all the winemakers, they understand if we want to be interesting for people outside Ukraine, of course, it's really stupid to promote Ukrainian Cabernet or Ukrainian Sauvignon, because Cabernet is something French one, Sauvignon you would associate with New Zealand or maybe France as well. So we have our interesting grape varieties. So only for the last maybe, 5-10 years, we started to revive some, and we started to promote. For right now, the most important one and the most famous one are Odessa Black. It's the black grape variety. Maybe you could meet this grape with the name ᴅɪᴏ. So maybe in Slovakia, maybe in Hungary. So they grow ᴅɪᴏ. Actually, ᴅɪᴏ is the same as Odessa Black. It's the same grape variety, but with the different names. Here in Ukraine, we called it Odessa Black, of course. But if they grow it on Slovakia, for example, they have name for it ᴅɪᴏ. But it's our local grape variety. It was invented in our institute. It's cross of two grapes. The first one is Alicante Bouschet, and another one is Cabernet. That's why that name ᴅɪᴏ, and Sauvignon. During USSR time, as I know, so maybe it's a legend, but as I know, so this grape variety is the same as Saperavi. I mean that it has not only skin with the color, but it also has an inner side with the color. So it's impossible to make white wines with this grape, or it's not so easy to make white wine with this grape.
Must be difficult, yeah.
Yes, so you can receive really full body wines with a lot of color. And this grape variety, I've used to try Odessa Black of 2013, 2014. So I mean an old ones. For Ukraine, it's an old one if it has 6 or 7 years of storage. And it was really perfect. It was really something interesting. It was really, you can go on the export and say, hey, we have a lot of good wines here. Then another one interesting grape variety is the white one. The name is ᴅɪᴏ. Actually, it's the Turkish name. ᴅɪᴏ. Yes, usually people ask tilti what? It's really hard to pronounce even for Ukrainians, not only for other. So even for Ukrainians, tilti kruk is something unpronounceable.
Yeah.
Before 2012, only one company in Ukraine produced wine with this grape, and in 2012, another one winery started to produce tilti kruk. So actually, now on the market we have only 2 producers with this grape. That's why it's also not so easy to say about style of this grape, because usually you has nothing to compare.
Yeah.
But let's see in 10 years, because a lot of small growers starting to grow this grape variety right now, and maybe in the next 10-15 years we will receive more and more tilti kruk, and we can speak better about the quality of the grape and about style we can receive. But let's say I have a few experiences with this grape on the foreign markets. 2 years ago, we make like the presentation of tilti kruk in France, and a lot of people have said that they like it, and it could be comparable with really good Chardonnays. And 1 year ago, I also made a presentation at Cambridge University. We have the Ukrainian wines tasting, and I also make the presentation of tilti kruk as well. And we had a lot of really good feedback for this wine. And another one, more or less important local grape variety is Сухолиманский. But unfortunately, Сухолиманский also is produced only by few wine producers. And then we have another grape varieties which we think are local one, but let's say true, it's Hungarian grape varieties. We grow on Transcarpathia, we grow Chersogi. It's very aromatic one. It's from Muscat family. And yes, and we have not a lot, but we have a little bit of Zweigelt as well. We grow Blaufränkisch wines, but I'm not sure we can say it's our local grapes.
Well, because part of the territory of Ukraine was, as you said before, Hungarian Empire. So maybe it's not like a nation, but yes, geographically, no. It's I mean. It's part of the territory where it was used to be, no? So
yes, and actually,
Austrian. So
yes, we grow a little bit of furmint as well, and actually, some part of Ukraine, of today's Ukraine, in the previous times, it was part of Tokaj. So. Of course, right now we are not allowed to use any name Tokaj, but in the previous times it was the part of that region as well.
So it was making this style of wine also kind of Tokaj?
Some wine producers, they try to make that style of wine, but I can say that it's really popular. So you can buy only 1 or 2 wine producers who wants to work with botrytis. So it's not common, but you can find.
Okay. And now in many countries, because it's not only in the western part of Europe, there is a trend among the wine growers and the enologists and so on, try to find the typicity of the area to the difference, or it means to give the importance to the terroir and the climate to transmit the character of the land and the landscape. I mean, when you drink the wine, to feel where it comes from. It arrived also this trend to Ukraine among the young producers, the new producers.
Actually, here in Ukraine, we had a project. It was European Union project. The name of the project was Developing Geographical Indications in Ukraine. I also was the part of this project, and the idea was first of all to make the normal legislation for geographical indication, because the meaning of geographical indication in Ukraine was not the same as it is in Europe. And then you should understand that unfortunately we still use some European names like champagne, cognac, sometimes Madeira. You still can find it on our market, especially cognac. Especially cognac, yes. And the idea of this project was to eliminate the use of that names. And another one idea was to develop our own geographical indications and to protect our own names and to find that interesting terroirs. For right now, in Ukraine, we are working on developing the few names. The first name is actually Transcarpathia wine, because Transcarpathia is very special due to climate, terroir, and so on. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of science work for that. So to protect name and to make really good specification, you should have a lot of science database. Unfortunately, not a lot of it right now, but wine producers, they started to work on it. So they started to look for some historical things. They are starting to educate more about the soils of the region and so on and so on. And another few names we want to protect here in Ukraine is ᴅÍᴏ winery, ᴅÍᴏ region. ᴅÍᴏ is the name of the big lake where we have vineyards in Bessarabia. And another one terroir they want to protect is in Shabur region. It's also Odessa region, is south of Ukraine. So let's say we only start this work in Ukraine to study our terroirs. So it's unfortunately we don't have a lot of previous work before, so it's only start, let's say, a few years ago, that science work.
Well, it happens everywhere. There is a constant change. I think happily the wine world is dynamic and it changes, and even here in Spain there have been in the last years many changes, no? In this sense, the appellations and indications and so on. And now, how many you have in Ukraine? How many regions with appellation of origin or IGP or something like that? How many you have?
So unfortunately, for right now, we don't have any official protected names, but this works is just in the progress. So I hope in the next year, maybe next 2 years, we will have our own specifications and our own protected names. For right now, we don't have any official appellations.
Then it's really very, very, very beginning.
Yes, really very. I mean, we don't have any official appellation which is protected not only in Ukraine but in Europe as well. So it would be more correct, because due to our legislation, we have a so-called KNP. It's controlled name of protection, but it works a little bit different than appellation in Europe. And we have protected Szabo. It's the one, but as I know, it's not protected in Europe. But
Szabo.
Szabo.
But this is the name of a winery, no?
Szabo is the name of the winery as well, and the name of the protected of the protected appellation, but it's protected by our legislation. But they are working on make it I don't know, maybe a GP or something like this.
No, but anyway, this figure exists in Spain, for example. We have the appellations of origin, we have the vino de la tierra, all this. but there are also what we call the vino de pago, and
Mm-hmm.
every winery under this appellation pago, they have their own, let's say, appellation of origin, their own rules. So it's something that can happen also there. And now we are having also, for example, inside Rioja, Priorat, and Bierzo, the trend to say the name of the village, like
Mm-hmm.
like in Burgundy, or also.
Mm-hmm.
So it's dynamic. The wine world is something that is not already fixed forever, no? So it's fine.
Yes, it's really dynamic right now. And even if you would try Ukrainian wine 5 years ago and you would try it today, so it's dramatically different wine. So we have more and more technologies. We have a lot of more and more knowledge. We have more and more wineries. And in the future, I hope we will have protected appellations as well.
Mm-hmm. And well, you talked before about not all the Ukrainian wines are good and so on, but there are some which deserve to be tasted. Can you recommend some?
The first one we spoke about Szabo Winery. If you would find their wines, any, I don't know, red wine, let's say. Actually, Szabo export a lot, and you can find their wines in London, in America, in China, and their red wines are really good, and they promote ᴅɪᴏ, as I said before, it's white wine. You should definitely try it.
Mm-hmm.
Then another one winery I really like is Beykuş Winery. It's the small one, but they have a lot of experiments with a lot of technologies. So you can find wine in Amarone style, for example, or you can find a lot of orange wines that they produce. They produce really famous right now pet nuts and so on, so on. So if you find their wines, so I would definitely recommend them. I would definitely recommend a few small wineries. You wouldn't find it anywhere. Even in Ukraine, you could find it only in our bars. So, but if you will see the name, I really like really small winery. The name is Father's Wine.
Mm-hmm.
Another is a biologist. It's just near the Kiev, and the new one is Vinoman.
Mm-hmm.
But they produce few thousand of bottles every year, and they just start. So it's impossible to find it anywhere. And another one interesting winery is Colonist. Colonist was the first promoters actually of Odessa Black grape variety. They were the first one started to talk that this grape variety have a lot of potential. They have really good red wines as well, and they're working with one French consultant, and you can find their wines on export market. Not a lot of, but you can find on the export market.
Next time I go to Ukraine, I have to pass through your wine bar to.
Of course, definitely.
These rare wines that only can be found there.
Yes, you definitely should go to our bars and to try a lot of interesting things. Actually, the prettiest thing about Ukraine and about as we don't have any classifications, I mean, official one that strict appellations as well. So our producers, they have a lot of opportunities to experiment with technologies, to experiment with grape varieties and so on. And I think it's a good thing. So in Ukraine, you can find a lot of sparkling wines. You can find Petnat. You can find white wines. You can find orange wines. You can find wines in ᴅɪᴏ. So we really like Georgian culture as well, and a lot of small wine producers, they experiment with this style of wine. You can find young red wines, or you can find aged red wines. So a lot of technologies and a lot of experiments here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in the beginning, when you were talking about your projects and so on, you didn't mention that you have a project to make a wine. I would
Yes,
like you to explain us this and which of this big variety of choice you have in Ukraine, which one you would decide to do? Orange, red, aged, young, what? Talk
actually,
about your project, please.
yes, actually, I have a big dream to produce my own wine in the future, of course. And this year, in 2012, I've decided to make a small experiment to produce 500 liters of white wine and one cask of the red wine. Of course, I'm not a technologist, so I don't have any technological knowledge. So I've used consultation from the normal winemaker, and I've used an equipment of one of the winery which is situated here near Kiev. And so I've participated in some processes to produce my own wine. So I've chosen Sauvignon Blanc for the white one and Cabernet for red. I would say wine. If I would have an opportunity to buy really good quality grapes of our local grape varieties, I would choose our local. But when you don't have your own vineyard, so it's impossible to control the quality of the grape. And we didn't have an opportunity to find any good local grape varieties. That's why we bought Sauvignon Blanc and we bought Cabernet Sauvignon. I've produced 667 bottles of Sauvignon, from which 550 is already sold for one day. And the rest 100 bottles I will sell in my bar. I can't say it's perfect wine, but it's really good one. So it's Sauvignon in, let's say, European style. So it's not like New Zealand, really explosion. Yes, it's not the same. So it's more or less European style, but it has a lot of Sauvignonness. How to say it on English, I don't know. A lot of Sauvignon aroma. And it's really fresh. And Cabernet Sauvignon is still in the cask right now. We will see after May what we will. I don't know, but in future I want to have more experiment with that. But I totally understand that it's impossible to produce good quality wines when you don't have your own vineyards. So when you should buy, usually, especially when you buy, I don't know, 1,000 kilograms. When you don't buy big quantities, so nobody will sell you the best ever grape they have.
Yeah, of course, and this is the more important thing. The prime material is number one. If you want to have a good wine, you need a first class grape.
Yes. Yes. So in future, I don't know, maybe in 3 years, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, let's see, I don't know. I want to have my own vineyards and then to have my own winery. I can't say right now where, because unfortunately here in Ukraine, we have some specific law which doesn't give us to buy land easily. So I hope it will change in a few years, but right now it's not so easy to buy land. So let's see. Let's see. I don't know.
And well, these people who cultivate the grapes, do they have the trend also, like here in the West, about bio culture and biodynamics and all this, or still doing with chemical products and so on? What is the trend now?
Actually,
is any change?
Actually, it depends. It depends. You should understand that to use all the chemicals on the vineyards, it costs money. So actually, let's say that to be biodynamic, it costs not so much.
Well.
Okay.
Also, think
Yeah.
that when you use fertilizers and chemicals to protect against plagues, you have bigger productions, and
Yeah.
when
Yes.
you
Yes.
when you
When
don't do
we are talking
anything.
about the big producers of grapes, of course, usually they use all that kind of chemicals and so on because they can't lost everything, so they should be protected.
Mhm.
When we are talking about small producers, usually a lot of them works with that biodynamic, organic, and so on. And it's huge trend, not only in Europe but in Ukraine as well. So you can make a lot of marketing with that as well. So some small producers, of course, they use it, but I would say that we don't have here a lot of that knowledge about biodynamics, let's say, and only starts over here. As I know, we don't have any vineyard which is certified, officially certified as biodynamic. So it's only start.
Uh-huh. Okay, but think about this too, because the when you are not using chemicals and so on, your production is smaller. The yield per hectare is smaller, so
Of course.
the rentability of the land is smaller. So sometimes to spend the money in the treatments, in the chemical treatments, it makes how to say rentable, no, the investment. So is this, but also, well, the trend is this because, as I said before, the new winemakers and agricultures are looking for the typicity of the area, and all together with the bioculture, organic, as you said, or maybe biodynamic, which is a little bit more complicated. But this is the trend right now in Spain overall, but I know as well in Argentina and Chile, in France and Italy, there are more and more growers that they try to do minimal intervention in the agriculture. No?
Yes, but you should understand that here in Ukraine we have really hard climate as well. And sometimes it's just impossible to be organic or biodynamic and so on because of the climate. I think it's easier in Chile or in Argentina than in Ukraine. So
yeah, this is true. This
you should understand as well.
One question, just curiosity: do they have to cover the vineyards during the winter or not?
It depends on the region. It depends on the region, but if we're talking about the northern regions, like for example, let's say Kiev region or in Lviv, they do it. I know one winery, they actually for the last few years we have quite mild winter, so we didn't have less than -5, -10, and this year they decided not to cover the vineyards. It's the winery which is situated near Kiev, and this winter in Ukraine,
it's colder.
it's really hard. It's -15, -20 in the it could be even -25 in the night, and they lost a lot this year. So it's better to cover. It's better to cover, but we're talking about the northern region. Usually on the south they don't do it.
Yeah, but this winter is being like in the old times.
Yeah, we have a lot of snow. I don't know if you see my window. So it's a lot of snow. So we didn't see that amount of snow for a long time.
Good. Well, we are arriving to the end, and for the end, I always keep 2 questions for the guests. One is, which is your favorite grape?
My favorite grape is Riesling. I think that it's really genius grape because you can produce any style of wine you can imagine. You can produce with Riesling. That's why.
Okay. And the last one is to close the program is that you match wine, not with food, but with a song.
With a song. For me, wine, it's about fun. Wine, it's about good mood. It's about a lot of friends, and wine is about partying. Mm-hmm. So I would say we have. Can I choose the Russian-speaking song? Yes.
Whatever you want.
So I will send you the link. The name of the song is "ᴅɪᴏ," which means party. And the name of the singer Monatic is one of my favorite one. So I will send Monatic.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will send you the link, and I think party, wine, friends, good mood. It's the best ever match.
Really is. Yeah. For me, it's the same. It's friendship, it's culture, and the gastronomy, everything for fun. Yeah. Good, and has been very nice to have you here. And thank you for your time and this little tour in Ukraine and the first knowledge about your country. And I hope you can make more and more wine.
Thank you very much, and I want to invite everybody to Ukraine. Actually, the borders of Ukraine are open right now, and a lot of things are working right now. So bars are working, and actually we have more or less normal life here in Ukraine. So just in case you want to have party, come to Ukraine and drink Ukrainian wines.
No, but I have been in October, and they had to close at 10 o'clock in the evening. This is finished already?
No, we still should close at 10 o'clock. But let's say when you know.
Yeah, understood.
People, you always will find the place you can have party after 10 o'clock.
Okay, that's good.
You can find some bars which are opened. It's not about like Locus. Unfortunately, we are closed at 10. But if you want to drink some cocktails here in Ukraine, just ask me. I will tell you where you can do it.
That's good. Thank you so much. Well, friends, till here the trip to Ukraine with Jenia and Jenia. Sorry for the pronunciation, and I hope you enjoyed. And see you soon. Yes. Drink a good wine, be happy, and enjoy life. See you soon. Good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.